It's easy to forget when you're painting boats that boats are a compositional subject in themselves. So where you place your boat is quite important. It doesn't want to be in the middle. So if you are painting a boat that's travelling from left to right across your painting, the best place to place it is a third of the way in from the left, and that's what I'm going to do on this subject. If it's sailing left to right, then place it on the right so the boat's got some painting to sail into. Always look better. This is going to be a fishing smack, so I'm starting off with the classic figure of 8 shape here. That's going to give me my hull. I'm going to have it leaning over into the wind, so it's basically leaning over towards us. The sails are going to be filling in towards us, so that would mean the boat is leaning into the painting the way we're looking at it. So the mast has got to be, again, leaning in to the painting the same way as that does. Back of the boat here, it's got a sort of a nice swept stern. We'll put the sea in later. I've got a foresail, well, I've got 2 foresails on a fishing smack. Just putting the lines in from the mast down to the actual end of the sprit. Otherwise, when you come to put the sails in, sometimes you suddenly find that they miss the actual sprit, and that never looks very good. The other foresail covers the mast, comes down like that, and we can see that going in the back here. And then we've got the mainsail, which is on a sprit, and that drops down there. And again, that's got a boom on the bottom of it, like so. And the main, unlike a Thames barge, the actual topsail is on its own spar, and that sticks up like this. That's the main difference visually between a smack and a Thames barge, apart from the fact that the Thames barge has also got a rear steering sail which connects to the rudder. We've got the waves coming up in front of it. We can mask some of this and make it look so much more interesting, but this is really ploughing through the water here. It's going up on a step. If the sails are full of wind, it means it's a windy day. If it's a windy day, especially in shallow shoal waters, that sea is going to be quite powerful. It's going to have lots and lots of sort of white horses in it. So that's the kind of sea we're going to paint. We're going to mask out the white horses and build a sea up in layer on layer on layer on layer to give it some motion. I've finished the drawing of the smack, and I've actually masked out all the white areas I want to keep. I've even put a few birds in the sky as masked them out white. So I'm going to turn this upside down. It's a lot easier to paint this sky upside down than the right way round. And I'm going to wet the entire sky and a little bit onto the actual water itself, because then I can wash in my overall colours for the sky, and this will be blended very softly then into the first 2 or 3 layers of the sea, which will help show my distance and depth. So this is raw sienna with ultramarine, and this is going to go into the sea in the immediate foreground. The back bit there is nice and bluey. This is just the first wash going across the foreground here. We'll have a little bit more ultramarine in it just to tone it down and make it a little bit darker right at in the immediate foreground here. And that's right, brush it along so it catches up with the masking fluid that we've already put on there for the whites of the waves. And that'll be great, because obviously you've got clouds in the sky. It's going to be shaded in parts, and that will just do the shadowy bits. Another bit in there. There we go, that's cracking. You must leave that sky to dry really hard before you put a layer of colour into it. I'll remove the masking fluid just around the edges of the sails, because I put that on there just to keep a nice crisp edge to those sails. And then we want a wash of raw sienna, not too strong, literally. Just blast it across the sky here, right across these sails, and give the whole thing a feeling of warmth on top of this great stormy sky. Otherwise you can't have bright sails on boats if you haven't got brightness in the sky. So put that down there like so. Loads of energy into it. Just with a bit of water, just clean water, just kind of feather that down into the sea, so you don't see a hard edge as such. In order to get some idea of depth in this water, I need to darken off the foreground. So as the sky's drying, I'm just going to put another layer of underneath that masking fluid I've put on here for it to be the white horses. I'm going to put a slightly darker layer right in the foreground here, and then we'll be looking from a dark layer to a light layer behind, and that immediately will give you a sense of depth and distance. Thin it down a little bit, And we'll just put another one there, just underneath the boat, so when we've definitely got a dark bit, a light bit, and a darker bit. So here's the next dark bit going in here, which will make the actual water that the boat's creating, the wash that the boat's creating, look a lot brighter. Perfect. It's got dark, light as you go back. That's exactly what you want. I've let that dry thoroughly now, because obviously I don't want, when I start to paint the boat, I don't want the colour of the boat migrating into the sea or into the sky, so it's dried really hard. If you're doing it yourself, it's best that's when you take your dog for a walk or whatever, or have a coffee or anything, but let it dry well before you try and paint any more. And then basically these sails I'm going to pop in here in mixtures of raw sienna and burnt sienna basically. I don't want them all the same, but just if you want the colour a bit lighter, don't be tempted to put white in. Just add water, it'll make it nice and light. The spars and so on can all be left as the sienna that I put on first of all. Because it's got sienna on it already, it's going to have a lovely warm appearance anyway, so that's fine. We just stick all this in here. That's just the raw sienna with a burnt sienna, and that can go in there on a foresail. There we are. Wonderful. Odd little bits of light that get left in it. You're not painting the kitchen door at home. It doesn't all want painting. It looks nicer if there's odd little bits that are a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, or little patches of the original colour grinning through. There's no spar underneath that, so. I've actually put another layer of burnt sienna on this sail at the main sail, because it looked a little bit thin when it dried. It always dries a little bit lighter than you expect, and that's gone a bit pale, so I've just put another layer of burnt sienna on that. Now I've got a bit of burnt umber with some ultramarine to make a dark. Don't be tempted to use Payne's grey and stuff and hulls it looks awful. But to make a hull look as if it's wet and shiny, I'm just going to put a bit of water in there first, just along the front edge here where that big wave's crashing up. It's been covered in spray. I'm going to literally paint that then out of that. And let that just blend in there, and it will give the hull the appearance of being wet. I've masked a little part of this as well too, so that we've got one of these sort of lines going down the hull. But that little soft bit there will be wonderful. It'll just make it glow, make it look nice and sort of wet, and a little bit more dark in the back there like that. Down to there we are, a little bit on this side as well. Brilliant. And just to finish off these sails, just a little bit of sienna here on this second foresail here. A little bit of sienna on the hold. There we go. The next thing to do is really just put the spars and the masts in to make sure they stand out. The masthead properly is usually white, so we'll just leave a little piece on the top of that. Otherwise we've just got the mast coming down here like that to that top of that sail. But obviously it appears again underneath at the bottom down here. And then we've got the spar that the actual topsail sits on. That's coming down there like so, links into this. This is where the old marl stick's a huge help when you're painting. Keeps your line straight, keeps your hand steady. And we've obviously got this spar then, so that mainsail, and the sprit on the front. There we go. So that's all the sort of timber bits put in. A little bit for the winches at the bottom of that there, like that. A little bit for the tiller on the back. A bit of dark in here, a little figure in there as well, while we're at it. There we are. I'm going to remove this masking fluid. I'm just going to check that this boat's dry. The actual hull's dry, so I can now remove the masking fluid. This is for the stripe down the side and so on. It's much easier to put it in like that than try and paint it in afterwards in opaque. It looks more natural. Remove the waves. The seed has to be really dry when you do this, otherwise obviously any colour you've just put on there will spread all over the place. So make sure your seed's dry before you remove your masking. The rigging on a boat will always make it look right. Not only that, it'll always make it look as if it's in front of the sky. On a large painting, you can put that in with a rigger. It's not the easiest of things to do, but you need an edge to do it with. On a small little painting like this, I usually use a pencil, a very sharp pencil. If you're unsure where the rigging's going to go, it's also a good idea to just draw a few lines first with a pencil to make sure it looks right. I mixed the shadow because there's a lot of white in this painting. i.e. the water, the splash. You can't shade that with grey, it will make it look very dull. So what I've made here is a shadow tone using light red and ultramarine. Because we use light red, you have to keep mixing this because it'll separate as you're trying to use it. So here we go on the old shadows here. We've got this, obviously this top sail here is casting quite a large shadow down here over the top of this main sail. And then we've got a little bit of shadow from the foresail will come down here, and because of the curve of the sail, the shadow at the back here will curve around. There we go, that's sail shaded in. And then we've got the shadow then on the cast from the first foresail onto the one underneath and behind. We're bound to see a bit of shadow on the back end of this mizzen sail. And probably a little bit here, just in the corner here, because it's behind those foresails. See, perhaps a little bit of shade on the sprit. Shadow on the back end of the boat, obviously, where it's especially underneath where the sails are. And then that's all lit here. We'll see shadows on the figures on the boat because obviously they're behind the sails. And then we'll start to see the shadows on the water itself. A vessel that size has got to cast a shadow on the water behind it. Obviously there's a lot of sail there, that sail's stopping all the light, so we'll see a lot of shadow behind it there like that. It's not too dark. If it's too dark, there's a bit more water with it. And then we'll see shadow here, a little bit there, a little bit there like that. Even perhaps a bit of cloud shadow in the distance here on that, going across the waves right in the back of the painting there where there's no light hitting them, so they'll be shaded as well. And then we'll have a little bit of shadow down here in this foreground bit. I've painted that deliberately dark to make it look as if it was in shadow, so of course all the whites will also be shaded a bit like that. And there we go. And that, more or less, is it. It's a fishing smack in windy conditions with a nice flowing sea, all the spray, the spume. A lovely little subject. I hope the techniques we've discussed help you to produce some really wonderful, competent and interesting boat paintings.
Now available on DVD. Try these techniques yourself at home whenever you wish. The extended version of today's workshop is now available to order on DVD from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.